You can go ahead and be seated. The colors will be coming. Go ahead and be seated, please. Please please rise for the presentation of colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and our national anthem. And as the colors come forward, I would remind all of you veterans that the Department of the Army and Secretary of the Army and Department of Defense has authorized all veterans to offer a hand salute, if you prefer, or your hand over your heart. That's for veterans. If you want to offer a hand salute to the flag, you are allowed to do so now. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please remain standing until the color guard exits the hall.
All in left. Arch.
Please be seated. A little warm in here, hey? The Pineview Choir has two military songs for us, one from the Civil War and one from World War II.
Passing through. As I rest in fields of green, let him lean on my shoulder. Tell him how I spent my youth, so the truth could go older. Tell my father when you can, I was a man. Tell him we will meet again, where the angels learn to fly. Tell him we will meet as men, for with honor did I die. Tell him how I wore the blue, proud and true, through the fire. Tell my father so he'll know I love him so. Tell him we will meet again, where the angels learn to fly. Tell him we will meet as men, for with honor did I die. Tell him how I wore the blue, proud and true, like he taught me. Tell my father not to cry, then say goodbye. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
It is so nice to be surrounded by all that youth, let me tell you. Hey, we're fantastic. Pineview Choir, thank you so very much. This time I'd like to introduce Military Chaplain Terry Jordan for the invocation. Colonel?
Would you bow with me as we pray? Heavenly Father, we come to you today, first of all, giving thanks for our nation and for the freedoms we enjoy. God, you've established this nation in freedom, and you have preserved us a nation that strives to enrich our world by the notion that all men are created equal in your sight and deserve that God-given liberty. God, today we come to honor our veterans, those worthy men and women who gave their very best when they were called upon to serve and protect our country and our freedoms. We thank you today and pray for all who have served and for those who laid down their lives that our American way of life might continue and influence the world for freedom's sake. We pray for those who have fought, whose spirits and bodies are scarred by war, whose nights are haunted by memories too painful for the light of day. We pray for those who serve us now, especially for those in harm's way. Shield them from danger and bring them home. Bless them abundantly for the hardships they face, for the sacrifices they make in contribution to America's victories over tyranny and oppression. And especially we pray for your protection and uplifting of their families while they're away. Would you bless them with peace and happiness through the presence of your Holy Spirit, even when their loved ones return. For all of our veterans and servicemen and women, God, we respect them, we honor them, we're proud of them, and we thank you for them. And today, Lord, we would turn our hearts and our minds. Would you turn the hearts and minds of our nation's leaders and our enemies to the work of justice and a harvest of peace? God, would you turn our country and our hearts, one by one, back to you? And may the peace that you left us, the peace that you gave us, be the peace that sustains us and the peace that saves us. All these things we pray in thy holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Jordan. Colonel, sir. On behalf of the Junior League of Sarasota and the Junior League of Manatee County, I would like to welcome you to today's Legacy of Valor Celebration Luncheon. We're proud to be a part of the larger celebration over the next several months, culminating with the ribbon cutting at Patriots Plaza on the grounds of the Sarasota National Cemetery. The purpose of today's celebration is to honor our veterans and active duty servicemen and women. And at this point, I'd like to ask anyone who has a loved one serving in Afghanistan and or to please stand. Anyone who has a loved one, brother, sister, grandson, granddaughter. I'd also like to ask anyone who's on active duty to please stand and be recognized. National Guard, Reserve. And I'd remain standing, please. I'd also like to ask anyone who served on active duty or National Guard or served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, or any of the other conflicts to please stand and be recognized. Thank you so very much. Without the duty and sacrifice of our military personnel, we would not be able to have the freedoms we currently enjoy. Today, you will hear an overview of the Legacy of Valor campaign from Deborah Jacobs, and you will hear from Ken Thomas about his thoughts and perspectives based on his experience as an Army Ranger having served in Mogadishu. Right now, we would like to offer some special thanks to the people who made this happen. Ron Ciavella, oh, and please just remain seated for a minute. Ron Ciavella of Dolphin Aviation for the gracious use of this facility. Tim Thompson of Extravaganza Productions for the sound and staging. It's really great. Linda Nemere of SNN Local News would have been here, but she broke her arm. Thank you, and special media SNN coverage, as well as METV and Bright House Networks. Thank you also to Mr. Mannix of the Bradenton Herald and Billy Cox of the Herald Tribune for their stories with Kenny Thomas. And we would like to recognize Sally Tibbetts from Representative Vern Buchanan's office, along with Judge Hayward, Judge Smith, and Marjorie Singer from Southeast Guide Dogs. Could everyone that I just mentioned please stand up? We'll give you a big hand. Thank you for helping putting this thing together today. Now I'd like for you all to meet Deborah Jacobs, but first you got to hear a little bit about this woman. In January of 2009, Deborah Jacobs became the president and chief executive officer of the Patterson Foundation based here in Sarasota. In honoring the Patterson heritage, the Patterson Foundation believes that through communications, technology, and financial innovation, improvements may be achieved that transcend any single issue, entity, or geographic area. Deep thought there. The Patterson Foundation provides resources to facilitate, expedite, and share methods, techniques, and tools, joining with others in creating new realities. The Foundation believes in delivering value far beyond a single act of philanthropy and creating ripple effects that are felt beyond a single community. Prior to joining the Patterson Foundation, Deborah was president of the William G. and Marie Selby Foundation here in Sarasota. In addition to the Selby Foundation, she was responsible for administering 8 other foundations that delivered $8 million to the community every year. Prior to joining the Selby Foundation in 1998, Deborah was the vice president for institutional advancement for Ringling College of Art and Design. She came to the position after 11 years as executive vice president for SunTrust Bank, Gulf Coast. Prior to joining SunTrust in 1985, she was senior vice president and retail division administrator of Central Trust Bank in Rochester, New York. And Deborah, the temperature right now in Rochester is 45 degrees. Deborah received her undergraduate degree, summa cum laude, from the Utica College of Syracuse University in 1971 and earned her master's in 1981 from the University of Rochester. In 1986, she went back to school, graduated from Stonier Graduate School of Banking. A big welcome to Deborah Jacobs.
John, thank you for that extensive and generous introduction. John Hill actually didn't get to be introduced by anyone, so I'm going to encourage you in your program today. There's a beautiful write-up about him as he so generously is guiding us through our program today. I am honored to speak to you today on behalf of the Patterson Foundation, providing a glimpse into who we are and why we are excited to partner with the Junior Leagues of Sarasota and Manatee. These 2 separate organizations have come together to collaborate on today's event, and what a powerhouse of talent. With 223 actives and 634 sustainers, oh, let's face it, they could run a country. But while they're not running a country right now, but then it does make me think, perhaps we should buy them tickets to Washington, and perhaps they could help our country because of their fine skills. We are at Dolphin Aviation, maybe we can work that out. But in the meantime, they are working with 60 different local nonprofits with their all-volunteer cadre changing the world. So our deep appreciation for the sustainers and the actives that not only made today happen, but for the work that you do every single day. Junior Leaguers, thank you. But I now want to take you on a little bit of a philanthropic journey of the wealth that created the Patterson Foundation. We're a fully endowed charitable foundation, but the money had to come from somewhere. So I'm going to take you on a historic journey. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Legacy of Valor campaign. So let's look back in history, and we trace our roots back to the mid-1800s when Joseph Medill bought into the troubled Chicago Tribune for two reasons. He wanted to make money, and he was successful. He eventually acquired the Tribune, and to create the Republican Party and get Abraham Lincoln elected president. He was successful, and going through the generations, his grandsons returned from World War I, Colonel McCormick and Captain Patterson, and they came back to run the Tribune Company. There was one problem. They were really smart guys, great business acumen, but they had totally different ideologies. Colonel McCormick was a capitalist. Captain Patterson was a socialist. So I want you to figure out how that Sunday editorial coverage would be as they were expressing their opinions. But they formed a voting trust. McCormick stayed to run the Tribune Company, and Patterson went to New York City to create the New York Daily News. If you've ever seen the New York Daily News, a lot of photojournalism, tabloid type, and it was for every person riding the subway. In fact, Captain Patterson could be considered one of the fathers of the comic strip because he had 42 comic strips he developed or worked with over the years. Well, Patterson and his second wife Mary had one son, Jim, who dated Dorothy Clark, whose dad was a prison guard at Sing Sing. So you can imagine the different socioeconomic conversations they went through. But he went to West Point. He then served in World War II. He and Dorothy got married. He worked as an editor at the New York Daily News. Then he retired in the mid-1970s to Longboat Key. They lived very understated lives, but then Jim died at Longboat Key, but then he died in 1992. 5 years later, totally on her own, Dorothy Patterson created the Patterson Foundation with $3 million of her wealth. And if you know how private foundations work, each year we must give away 5% of our corpus. So for 10 years, Dorothy Patterson did kitchen table philanthropy, where she would write checks out totaling about $150,000 a year. When she died in 2007, she left very generous bequests to her 10 nieces and nephews, and the remainder of her estate went into the Patterson Foundation. She established the Patterson Foundation with no geographic focus, no issue focus, and no organizational focus. Rather, she established the Patterson Foundation to do good and to do it well. Now that's pretty exciting, but it's also very daunting, because when you can do anything, Dorothy gave us flexibility, opportunity, and responsibility to do what others aren't, can't, and won't do. Thanks to the wisdom of our board, they thought we have to take advantage of this flexibility, opportunity, and responsibility and really be very thoughtful about what we do. So the Patterson Foundation, as John so eloquently shared, does work in the space of creating new realities by supporting partnerships and bringing communications technologies and new business models for thrivability. Now, why are we here today, and what does this have to do with the Patterson Foundation? Well, our military initiative actually is thanks to the heritage of the grandsons and Jim Patterson himself, and also we trace our roots back to that Abraham Lincoln tie with Joseph Medill. In July 17, 1862, so take me back to the mid-1800s, Congress enacted legislation that authorized the president to purchase cemetery grounds to be used for national cemeteries for soldiers who have died in the service of their country. 14 cemeteries were established that very first year, including one in the sleepy Maryland town of Sharpsburg, where 4,476 Union soldiers were laid to rest after that one terrible slaughter at the Battle of Antietam. By comparison, for those who have served in subsequent wars, Approximately 3,000 American, British, and Canadians died on June 6, 1944, in the invasion of Normandy. 150 years ago next week, on November 19th, not exactly next week, yeah, it is, okay, Lincoln delivered his Gettysburg Address, where his words apply today. And while I'm not reading the whole address, here's an excerpt. It is for us, rather, to be dedicated to the great task before us, that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. As the war trudged on, Medill and Lincoln were often of different minds. And in 1862, a delegation from Chicago came to Washington to protest Illinois' draft allocation. During the meeting, after much debate and quarrelsome language, Mr. Lincoln rose and rebuked them generally for not supporting the draft, and then rebuked Joseph Medill specifically. And you, Medill, are acting like a coward. You and your Tribune have had much more influence than any other paper in the Northeast in making this war. You can influence the masses, and yet you cry to be spared at a moment when the cause is suffering. Go home and send us those men. And indeed he did. In Lincoln's second inaugural address, he used these words: with malice towards none, and with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us the right to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and orphan, and to all which may achieve and cherish a just and a lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. So here it is, around 150 years later. The Patterson Foundation and the Veterans Administration's National Cemetery Administration has entered into a first-time ever partnership where we are enhancing Sarasota's National Cemetery with the aspiration of our work will serve as a template for generosity at the other 130 national cemeteries across our country, and for those that are coming online in the future. Government indeed funds good. Philanthropy sparks imaginative excellence. The Patterson Foundation is building and donating Patriot Plaza, an amphitheater with seating for 2,800, all under a glass structure. It's the size of 1.5 football fields. The rostrum will seat a 55-piece orchestra, and there will be an 80-foot tall stainless steel flagpole. This will be a place for major commemorative celebrations and performances that the community can enjoy and for reflection. The public art at this site creates a space of learning and inspiration. And with over 100,000 veterans in our region, we have faith that Patriot Plaza will be a jewel at the Sarasota National Cemetery and a treasure for our region. Patriot Plaza is being fully funded by the Patterson Foundation, and we are also funding an endowment to cover the capital maintenance so that 100 or 500 years after the dedication, it will look as fresh with no incremental tax investment. If you want to learn more, we have a booth and information over to the side for you just to know about what's coming online in spring of 2014. But during our 18-month construction period and leading up to the dedication, the Patterson has created the Legacy of Valor campaign. This campaign is a mosaic of community-driven partnerships to educate, build enthusiasm, and focus individuals, businesses, and organizations to use their time, talent, and treasure to recognize the service and sacrifice of those who have served, who now serve, and who may serve in the future. We're working with over 100 partners, 2 of which are our junior leagues, and we know that our region is demonstrating how a caring community can work together for the 1% who serve to protect the 99% of the rest of us. Each of our partners is building upon their strengths to create new realities by working together, realizing that no one can achieve imaginative impact alone. Within the Legacy of Valor campaign currently underway, we have a 30-day unified Legacy of Valor opportunity now underway, where 12 veteran serving organizations are raising funds via the Giving Partner between now and November 15th. There's only 8 days left. And the Patterson Foundation will double every donation made to any of these 12 organizations, up to $1,000 per donor. Thank you. I'll give you a glimpse into who those 12 organizations are. We have the 4 habitats in our region who are doing the Veterans Rebuild. We have the Van Wezel, who has the Military Access Program for events at the Van Wezel. Jewish Family and Children's Services, who are working with homeless vets. All Face Food Bank, who has their Veteran Assistance Program. Sarasota Military Academy, who is working with those who may serve in the future. Military Officers Association of Sarasota, who's raising scholarship dollars. The USF Vet Center, who works with vets who have their GI Bill but have a gap with expenses that they need for their educational aspiration. Goodwill, who's working with vets on job placement. I hear a little Goodwill wiggle over there, okay? And the beneficiary of today's event that was chosen by the Junior Leagues, the Southeastern Guide Dogs. So if you want to learn more, as you leave, there will be brochures, but there's also a little flyer in your packet about the Legacy of Valor campaign. We know that everyone can be a philanthropist, and I would venture that each one of you, in your own way, are indeed giving of your time, talents, and treasures to make a difference. We laud this region because the heart of philanthropy beats very vibrantly. Thank you very much for the time to share.
In your program is this little flyer that Deborah was referring to. Also, this program is a dollar-for-dollar match every time you, until the 15th at 7 p.m. It has a hard cutoff. And on the 15th at 7 p.m. is the last time you can make a donation and have it matched, $1 for dollar, I think up to $100, by the Patterson Foundation. Thank you so very much, Deborah. Now, I see everyone's jumping in. I'd like to mention the centerpiece. When Crime Stoppers has an event, we always have people auction off, each table would auction off the centerpiece to make more money. But this one is edible, and so you're not going to be able to auction it off. Open it up, it's your dessert. So 20 years ago, Sergeant Kenny Thomas was deployed to Mogadishu, Somalia with the 3rd Ranger Battalion as part of an elite special operation team called Task Force Ranger. The mission was to find and capture a criminal warlord named Muhammad Farah Adi. On the 3rd of October, 1993, Kenny and his fellow Rangers distinguished themselves in an 18-hour firefight that would later be recounted in the highly successful book and movie Black Hawk Down. For those combat veterans here who've been in combat, who've been in firefights, most of them are over pretty quick. 18 hours is one very, very long time to be engaged in the enemy. That firefight cost 19 American lives and 78 were wounded, some of the worst urban combat fighting seen by U.S. troops since World War II. After Mogadishu, Sergeant Thomas volunteered for one more enlistment in the Army. He became an assistant team leader for a 6-man Ranger reconnaissance team. In Vietnam, we called them LRPs, but I know you're a Ranger. Anyway, he earned his master parachutist rating with more than 400 military free fall jumps. And again, pilots always wonder why anyone would want to jump out of a perfectly good aircraft. He completed the Special Forces Combat Diver course, became an advanced EMT, and was one of 10 Americans to complete the Belgian Commando course. After serving in the Army, Kenny became and pursued his music career. He now works full-time as an award-winning country music recording artist and songwriter in Nashville, and perhaps he'll share us if his company won any awards last night at the, I see a yes, so perhaps we'll hear a little bit about that. He and his band, Cornbread, were featured in the movie Sweet Home Alabama. The band entertains our troops as part of regular USO tours to Afghanistan. Kenny, a graduate of the University of Florida, is a frequent guest on major news networks as a military analyst, and was also a military advisor for Mel Gibson's movie, We Were Soldiers. And one thing on that movie, Kenny, you gave the helicopter pilots way too much credit in that final Idrang battle. Gun pilots don't do a duel face-to-face with the enemy. Anyway, it was a great movie, still is. He's been recognized by the President of the United States and the U.S. Congress, and was awarded the American Patriot Award and the Bronze Star with the Valor. Kenny says he is proudest of his appointment as a national spokesperson for the Hero Fund of the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. The organization provides college scholarship grants to children of special operations personnel killed in combat or training. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kenny Thomas.
Hey, y'all. Thank you. Hey. Thank you. They teach you in show business. We're going to turn. They teach you in show business that if you get a standing ovation, that you should end the show right then and there. Thank you. Good night. Right on. Hey, but before I get going, I want y'all to know how this is a privilege and this is an honor for me, especially on a day like this. It's a privilege, it's an honor, because I'm really just going to come in here and tell stories. And I'm going to tell stories about the guys that are on my left and on my right. And I know that by the grace of God, the only reason I was still around that day, and I'm still around nowadays to tell those stories, is because of those guys. So it is my honor, and I mean that. I don't take a second of this for granted. And I know that story's been told a bunch. But nobody's been told about Saransky and DeJesus and Floyd and all the guys I'm going to tell you about. And it's my story to tell, and if I don't tell it, who will? I know we had a ton of veterans. Y'all just, one more time, just raise your hand. Y'all got to stand up, because I know some of y'all don't want to stand. Raise your hand. Thank you. Hey, man, if you turn off all these other mics that are on the stage, that feedback will go away. I promise. Thank you. All right, so anybody that raised their hand out there, and they would, if they were up here on this stage, they would tell you the exact same stories. They could tell you if it was World War II or Korea, or my father who's here, if it was Vietnam, or my best friends that have fought over in Afghanistan. Thank you. My best friends that are in Afghanistan and that have fought in Iraq. If they walked up here and they told you their story, you would be hearing the same sort of things. Because it's never about what I did. It's always about what the people on our left and our right did. So what I want to do is come in here. What I hope that you get from it, and for those who have worn the uniform, you already understand what I'm trying to get at. For those of you who are sitting out here like, okay, we came in here today because we're part of this big day. They asked me, they said, Kenny, what's the point of this whole luncheon? What do you guys want to get out of it? And I wrote it down. They said they want to help inspire patriotism. Well, I don't think this room needs any help inspiring patriotism. That's a given. But what I want to do is inspire you with these stories. And what I want you to walk out of here at the end of the day knowing, remember how important that you are as an individual. Remember the difference that you can make as an individual. Someone's always going to come in and talk about the team, but I'm going to tell you right now, the team does not work without you. Listen to me now, anyone who wants to make a difference can make a difference. And you do it with the people on your left and your right. The stories I'm going to tell are all about leadership. I'll talk a little bit about training. You're going to hear me use this term, train as you fight. Fight as you train. I'm going to talk a little bit about planning, and if you fail to plan, then you can plan on failing. But most of all, what I'm going to talk about is leadership, and that means you. Leadership has nothing to do with the rank, has nothing to do with management, position, how much you're getting paid. It's all about the example you set. When you set an example for others to follow, you change lives. I promise you, you do. All right, so before I get going too, I'm a little different than most speakers are used to. I did not bring a PowerPoint presentation. If I had been in the Air Force, I would have brought a PowerPoint presentation. I was in the Army, we didn't have the budget. And just out of curiosity, because I've done a lot of tours and they always get up there and they say, the Sergeant Major of the Army will be up there, he wants to recognize the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Marine. And then he always says, and of course the Coast Guardsmen. Are there any in here? I know there's a couple. You're the two. It's awesome. Thank you for your service. Those guys were really smart. Coast Guard people, they were smart folks. All right, so our story started on a day off. It was a day off from training. It was a Sunday afternoon. We had been in Mogadishu for almost 2 months, running nonstop. People don't know, we had done 40 missions into that city already. If we weren't running missions, we were out in the sand dunes training, and constantly training. And finally on this Sunday, they said, all right, take the day off, do whatever it is you guys want to do. Some people are playing volleyball. I was writing a letter home to my mom, and she probably still has the front end of the letter because that's all I had a chance to finish. And it started out like this: Dear Mom, you would love it here in sunny Mogadishu. It looks just like South Florida. It's awesome. But Mom, she doesn't want to know that they're throwing mortar rounds at you and that they're shooting at you. What she wants to know is, are you getting fed? Are you getting your mail? You know, is everything, are you making a difference? Yes, ma'am, this place is great. You'd love it. A guy walks out of the airplane hangar. Well, this is the first time I've actually ever done this story in an airplane hangar, so it looks just like this. And the guy walked out of it and goes, all right, get it on. And it meant a mission was coming down, exactly like a firefighter or a police officer gets a call. So you gear up and you go do your job. Now, it looks kind of chaotic. People start running and scrambling everywhere, but we're all getting in front of our gear, and we're all double-checking our gear, and we're all double-checking each other. And the point being is that no one job can be done by itself. As good as you may be, you can't do it all yourself. Like, the world was not designed for you to carry its weight upon your shoulders. You need people around you. The machine gunner, if he's got the gun, he can't carry all the rounds because a lot of them are heavy, so we've got to help him carry that. The medic has his bag. He's got other stuff he's got to carry, so we're helping him. Everybody's checking each other. We're all double-checking, making sure we're all squared away, even though we've done it hundreds of times. And it was so routine. Let me tell you something. Please, I don't know what it is that y'all do out there for a living, but don't take the routine for granted. Stay focused. Do what needs, we call them SOPs, standard operating procedures. There's a task in place. And do these steps, because if you start skipping the steps because you think you know better, and this is what complacency sounds like, man, I've always done it this way and it's always worked out for me. I don't know why I need to do that. That's a stupid rule. Who made that one? That's complacency. And I don't care what it is that you do, but it will cost you. Always go through the double checks, because the whole point is what if? What if the medical bag was missing something? And I just assumed, because it was still under my bunk, I knew it was packed. But if I didn't pull it out and double check it, what if something was gone? Someone had picked something out of it and they didn't put it back. Who would be the guy to blame on that one? Who would be the one at fault? It would be me, because I would need something and I didn't have it, and the steps clearly said double check. So that's what we're doing. We're going through all this. The squad, so for those of you who weren't in the infantry, a squad size element in the infantry is usually about 8 to 10 men. The Ranger Regiment's always been shorthanded. We've never been at full strength, so we had 5 guys in my squad. So I want to introduce you to my 5 guys. First guy was Doug Bourne. Doug was an E5, a sergeant with 3 stripes on his shoulder. I was a sergeant with 3 stripes on my shoulder. In fact, Doug and I pinned on our stripes at the exact same ceremony, but officially he outranked me. He was the squad leader because he had been in the Army for like a minute longer than me. And I remember, I didn't grasp that concept. I remember asking my platoon sergeant, Sergeant Watson, I said, hey, Sergeant Watson, how come Sergeant Bourne gets to be the squad leader? I'm the same rank. Why am I not the squad leader? And I swear to you, he looked at me and said, because he's from Texas. Apparently, Texas outranks the rest of this nation, so I don't know what that is. But Doug goes into the briefing room, and he's going to get the mission. That leaves me with my 3 guys. I'm going to introduce you to these three guys because these are the ones the story is about. The first one was Melvin DeJesus. DeJesus was an E4 specialist at the time. He had earned his Ranger tab, meaning he'd been in the Army a little over a year. Got his Ranger tab, and now we're going to start grooming him to be a new team leader. He was a street, hard, tough guy from Puerto Rico, and we used to joke with him, like, dude, the only reason DeJesus is in the Army was because the judge gave him that option, right? And he was like, and everybody knows tough guy. Like, I know there's tough guys sitting out here right now because tough guys are the guys that be sitting like this, like, I've seen it all. What can you tell me? And that was DeJesus, man. I mean, when he first got to us, I remember we were like, man, this is a Carl Gustav rocket launcher, and it can penetrate 6 inches of armored steel. Are there any questions? And DeJesus is over there like, nah, man, in Puerto Rico, everybody had a rocket launcher. All right. Be glad that guy was on our side. Eric Saransky, he was a good, solid kid. He was an E3, a young private first class. He had been in the Army maybe about 8 months. I loved having him. He would be what y'all would call a great employee, a great team player. He was a good squad member because he was easy. You know why he was easy? If you showed him what you needed to get done, he was like, roger that, Sergeant, and he would go get it done. If you said how far, how fast, how high, he would get it done. He'd get it done. It was easy. It was easy to lead a man like that. I loved having him, which brings me to David Floyd. David Floyd grew up in South Kakalaki, Carolina somewhere up there in Spurrier country, and he was a spitting image. For those of you, and I know there's some people in this room who know who Barney Fife is. I did a high school not too long ago, and I said, he looked like Barney Fife, and everybody goes, who? Like, little town in Mayberry. That's what Floyd, he was 130 pounds, 6 feet tall. I mean, he was just goofy. And growing up in the South, like the most polite thing, when you see someone like, the polite thing to say was like, he's what we would call a bless your heart, which would be like, oh, you see him come like, oh, bless your heart, man. He was just goofy, and it wasn't that Floyd was I don't want to sell him short as a soldier by any means. He was a good soldier, but the Ranger Regiment had very high standards. And where it came easy for Doug and myself, physically and mentally, we could get it done. It was no problem. And Saransky could get it done, and DeJesus had probably already seen it already, so it was good for him. But Floyd had to work a little bit extra hard. And as the guy in charge of Floyd, I didn't like it. I was a young team leader. What I was worried about at the time was showing everybody how good I am. Watch how fast I can go. Watch how hard I can move. Watch I shoot, move, communicate better than everybody else. Watch me do that. Well, that's fine. That's a good example. But I had missed the point. I don't know why we do this, but we've done it. And we've done it since we were kids in school. When someone they're not as good as us. Or we don't think they're as good as us. They're not as fast. They're not as strong. They don't hold themselves to the same standards. They don't go to the same church that we go to. They're not holding themselves to the same moral fibers that we think that they should be. We start putting distance in between ourselves and them because we got our own problems to deal with, don't we, man? It's just tough. It's tough enough just getting by on my own. I got number one I got to worry about, and I don't want the boss man to see me with this guy, and that guy, maybe he'll just quit, and then I don't have to worry about him. But I don't know why trust me, y'all, I'm not preaching because I struggle with this still on a daily basis. When we leave somebody behind because they're not as good as us, or we don't think they're as good as us, that's the wrong answer. As the people in this room, who we all are, the leaders who set the example for others to follow, leaving someone behind is the wrong answer. The standards are high. David Floyd was capable of meeting those standards, but he needed our help. As good as you are, you can't do it all yourself. And I learned the lesson a very hard way. One day we had to go out and do a road march. The road march was 12 miles long. 12 miles long in 3 hours is the standard with 50 pounds on your back. Everybody in this room can still walk 12 miles in 3 hours just about. The problem is when you've got 50 pounds on your back and you've been out in the field, you know, like your knees start aching, your feet start getting blisters, you don't want to have to do it. So Doug and I, they said, hey, you guys run it, just do it on your own and knock it out, check the block. So Doug and I assumed, which is another form of complacency, who can't go 12 miles in 3 hours? Because it was easy for us. Who can't do it? Hey, you guys, meet us back at the airfield. We're going to run. We ran it in because we didn't really want to wait for anybody. It was painful enough no matter whether you ran it or walked it. So we didn't want to wait around for that, and we ran it. At 3 hours and 3 minutes, which is seconds per mile, but it's 3 minutes too long. It's not the standard. David Floyd came huffing and puffing, and he was doing his best to get across that finish line, and he didn't make it. I said, Floyd, you're late. And he says, I am, Sergeant. And Doug and I just turned around, and we didn't even bother yelling because we knew what was coming next. We walked right into Sergeant Watson's office, and Sergeant Watson's yelling at us. Why didn't that young man pass the road march? Why is that young man having such a difficulty meeting the standards that we have set? What's wrong with you too? He wasn't patting us on the back, calling us into his office to tell us, you two guys are studs. I'm lucky to have you in my platoon. What he was bringing us in there was like, why didn't that young man meet the standard? Because here's what Sergeant Watson understood as a man with some experience under his belt, as a leader who understood what leading meant. David Floyd, whether David knew it or not yet, David Floyd was the single most important piece of the entire picture. Every single life in our platoon hinged upon that young man. Why? David was one of 4 machine gunners in the platoon. If he wasn't the best machine gunner he could be, that meant the squad's a little bit weak. If the squad is a little bit weak, you know the platoon is crippled. If the platoon is crippled, your mission is doomed to fail. You do not send 10 players out on a football field and hope that the 11th guy is just going to do the right thing. Everybody has to be up to standard. It's tough enough as it is, with everybody being great to do what you need to accomplish. If you got one person, you think you're just going to pick up the slack for them and just ignore them, it's not true. Here's the bottom line, y'all. We are as good as our weakest link. And if we are counting on our weakest link, we can't just leave them behind. We got to lift them up. So, all right, that's my whole thing about standards. I've beaten that in. Because when the day came, get it on, and you need someone to answer the call for you, you know that guy is going to be ready because you've held them to a high standard. You provided that guidance and the mentorship and the teaching and the resources. You've done what you needed to do to bring him up so that you know when it's time to get it on and gear up, you can count on him. So here we are, we're getting the mission, and basically it goes down like this. Sergeant Watson walks out of the briefing room, and he has a photograph. It's an 8x10 photograph. I guess if I had a PowerPoint presentation, this would be where it would. But this picture is still supposedly classified, but basically all that it was can I borrow one of those pieces of paper here? I'll show you. Watch this. I'm going to show you. Don't tell anybody this is classified information. Yeah. So there's a building in the middle of a photograph, and the building's about this big, okay? And then Sergeant Watson throws it into a circle. He goes, all right, huddle up. And we all huddle up. And he circles it with a red pen. He goes, right here. This is the building we're roping in on, and this is the corner of the building we're going to be going in at. Are there any questions? Thanks, man. That was it. I mean, it's classified, so don't tell anybody. We had, in 10 minutes, which is less time than it took us to get in here and sit down and have lunch. We had a mission, we had a plan, we knew where we were going, who we were after, how we'd get there, we had backup plans in place, we knew exactly what each man had to do, and we were walking to the helicopters, rotors spinning, locked and loaded, ready to go. Please don't mistake the minimal time in a huddle with being poorly prepared. As good as these folks are in uniform, as good as our military is, we're not winging it. Here's where you're going to hear me say, if you train well enough in advance, and for those of y'all back there in the uniform that are starting out your military careers and you go on to long distinguished careers in the military, you're going to remember this word, train as you fight. Fight as you train. You are only going to be as good as you prepared yourself to be. That's the bottom line. If anyone's ever had a coach says the same thing. Now he says, you're going to play like you practice. Practice hard. Train, 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 so that when the day comes, you know what has to go down. Make a great plan. Planning is crucial, and planning is everything. Now listen, who do we want to be? Who are we? How are we going to get there? What is the mission that we've been tasked with? What are our courses of action? How are we going to do this mission? Hey, that's a good plan, but what if this happens? Man, I never thought of that contingency. Let's think of another thing to do just in case that happens. We come up with plans. Then you train on those plans constantly. And you what if, and there's always an opportunity to train. If you're sitting out there on the tarmac and you're in your jump gear and you're just waiting around for the plane and you think you got nothing better to do than to sit there and sleep, pull out your Ranger handbook and let's start reading about patrol bases. There's always a chance to learn how to be better. Then when the mission comes down and they say get it on and you were called to do what you signed up to do, you're ready to go. And that comes down to you. You, the individual, the leadership. General Garrison has a job to do. Colonel McKnight has a job to do. Captain Steele has a job to do. Our platoon sergeant has a job, all the way down to David Floyd. The only person David is in charge of is himself. But if he's leading by example, then I know we can count on him. You have a job to do. The mission execution is in your hands. It's all about the leadership. All right, so look, I'm going fast and furious. Y'all keep up with me, all right? So we're going in on the mission, let's just say. So pretend that this is north. If this is north, I'm going to orient you to Mogadishu. This is north, east, west, and south. Birds come out. They go out over the Indian Ocean. They fly around south into the desert. They come out west into the desert, and then they bank in from the north. The target building's in the middle of the city. 2 rows of helicopters now split off, and they're going down parallel streets. One row's going down that street, one row's going down that street. First birds in are the little bird helicopters. Those are the 2-manned, bubbled little, they're like Volkswagen of aircraft. Very simple, but very lethal if you tie a bunch of rockets and guns to the outside of them and you put the 160th Special Operations Air Regiment behind the wheel. Those guys are amazing pilots. The little birds are so maneuverable, literally those guys could fly in one door of this wing and go out the other. They're that good. So we would put the Delta Force operators on the bench on the outside. So they would just sit like this. And then the little bird could land right at the roof, or he could land at the front door, and the Delta guys step off and they're in, which is a very efficient way to do it. The Rangers are going to come in right behind the Delta guys, and we're going to rope in the Blackhawks to corners number 1, 2, 3, and 4 corners of the building, and then we'll put a perimeter around the outside. So that's basically how it's going down. The reason the Blackhawks are roping in is because they're too big to land in the street. Fast roping, just so you can get the visual, if you've never seen it happen, fast roping is not rappelling. People always do that, like, hey, I heard that you like to rappel out of aircraft. Yeah, well, rappelling is fun because, you're harnessed in and you're safetied in, and it's like that outward bound stuff. You're sitting on the cliff and everybody's yelling, you can do it. And you're like, okay, whee! That's rappelling. Fast roping is not so fun. It's just science is all it is. Lean out of the bird and gravity takes over. And if you want to go to the ground fast, don't hold on to the rope. If you want to go down controlled, grab the rope. That's exactly how we did it. So I'm the last man out of our helicopter. The bird comes to a flare. Now, this is a daylight mission. The reason the daylight mission is worth noting is because we had not done daylight missions before, because those are much more dangerous, because people can see you in the daytime. When people are going to shoot at you, the preferred thing is to have them not see you. So we didn't want to go in the daytime, but we kind of had to. I couldn't see anything from the aircraft. I have 2 jobs in the aircraft. First job is to identify the target building. I can't see the target building because there's dirt and dust everywhere, and it's swirling into the bird, and I'm looking at rooftops kind of swinging by, and I'm thinking, well, this is, honestly, though, in my head, I'm thinking, I got this covered because all I got to do is look for the building that's circled with red ink. I'm looking down, and I can't see anything, and I'm looking out the windshield, and I see Chief Wood, and he's talking to Chief Fuller, and I grab the headset to hear what they're saying, right as I hear Chief Fuller say, I can't see squat. Well, the pilots are flying blind, but I never had to doubt them. I never had to stick my head into the cockpit and say, hey, Chief Wood, are you sure you know where you're going? Because those guys always put us on the money. They always got us where we needed to be. Do you know why they did that? Because that was their job, and they understood how important they were. In fact, if you asked Chief Wood, he would tell you he was the most important piece of the entire puzzle. Why? Not because he was bragging, because he understood that every life in that mission hinged upon him and his ability to do his one job, which was put the customer on target, on time, plus or minus 30 seconds. That was their whole mantra at the 160th Special Operations Air Regiment. So when Chief Wood started to flare that bird, I looked out, I'm like, oh, now I see the target. I could see little birds coming out of the dust. I looked across the street, I could see the other 2 birds starting to flare. It's time to go. We kick the ropes, guys start going. I'm the last man out of my bird. As I reach for the rope, the crew chief, his name is Ned Norton. Ned has, picture like those guys from the Death Star on Star Wars, like they're all just black face mask. You couldn't see anything other than this sticker that he had stuck on his helmet. There was red, white, and blue. There, that was me working in the patriotism thing. You like that? Red, white, and blue. He put that up on the helmet, and it said, no fear. And it was, this old skateboard sticker. And he's yelling it at everybody as we go out the door. Now, remember, now this is daylight. They can see you, and they're shooting at you already. And Ned's yelling, no fear! Pointing. And I look at him as I go out the door, and I go, what? And he goes, no fear! I'm like, screw you! I remember I caught up with Ned sometime later, and I was like, hey, Sergeant Norton, come here. Hey, what was up with that whole no fear thing? He goes, man, I thought that would motivate you. I was like, yeah, dude, you flew away. So this is what, whenever I get to go to the schools and like some of the kids, the ROTC kids will come up, they'll be like, hey, I'm thinking about joining the Army. Do you have any advice? And I'll look around, make sure the recruiter's not looking. I'll be like, yeah, join the Air Force, dude. It's a good job. It's a great job. Because 9 out of 10 times they're flying away. It's a good job. So the mission is so far so good. We've got a perimeter around the outside. You can hear the Delta Force operators are kicking in doors. They pull the prisoners out. There's about 12 guys on our most wanted list that were in the building, and the Delta operators bring those guys out. They tie them up, and they're waiting in line. And then the trucks that are over here waiting a couple blocks away, they come driving up, and they put the bad guys on the trucks, and the trucks drive away. Probably 35 minutes from beginning to end. It was a successful mission. We raided into the middle of that. Picture going into a city that's the size of Atlanta, picking a single building somewhere in the middle of that city and saying, hey, get there in 10 minutes and get the people that are in it before they know you're coming and can run away. That's how it was, but we pulled it off. We are all waiting for a ride home. There's about 80 of us at the Target building waiting to go. And just like that, everything changed. Now, it had been a day off from training, and just like that, everything changes, which is generally how life kind of hits us, just like that. The first helicopter got shot down, and we saw kind of go off into that direction. We all knew what was happening, but I can relate it to you guys very easily because you've felt the same feeling. If you've ever been in a car wreck, or you've seen a friend get in a car wreck, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. Or you turned on the news and you saw people in Boston getting blown up, or towers in New York falling over, or towns in Oklahoma just get wiped out by storms, and cities in the Gulf Coast completely underwater. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's happening. But listen, y'all, it is happening, and there it is. And I don't mean to be hard, because as a friend, I will come to help you. As a neighbor, I will do my best to get there and help you. As a good community member, as a good Christian kid, I'll do my best to try and come and help you, and people will come to help you. But until that time comes and they can get there, what are you going to do? Well, here's what the military teaches us this, and they teach it from day one. They break it down. The easy decisions to make. The first decision you have to make when something happens is, what are you going to do? And they used to say that in Ranger School all the time. What are you going to do now, PL? Well, you have two choices. You have the right thing, or you have the wrong thing. And as people who lead by example and set the example for others to follow, you really only have one choice now, don't you? That's the right thing. But how in the world will we know what the right thing is unless somebody has taken the time to come back and teach you and lift you up and hold you to a high standard and give you the foundation and provide the character and the moral compass for you to know what the right thing is? We all know somebody who didn't get that chance. They didn't have the peer group. They didn't have the coaches. They didn't have the teachers. They didn't have the parents. They didn't have the family. They didn't have the community around them to teach them what was right, and they made the wrong decision. They're probably still paying for it. It's okay to make a bad decision now. It's okay. I tell people that are in charge all the time, it's okay. You can make mistakes, man. Go out there, make a mistake. I'll follow you, and then we'll learn from the mistake together, and we can be better and stronger. That's how you learn, is to make a mistake. But if you don't even know what the right thing is to do, here's what you're going to do. You're going to do nothing. That's what you're going to do. You're going to stand there. Lead and follow. But if you're not doing one of those, get out of the way. That's what they say. Lead, follow, get away. We all knew what we had to do. And the reason we knew what had to be done is because there was a plan for it. In the unlikely event that a helicopter has a mechanical failure, and that's a very broad term, but if the bird goes down, we need to get there and help those guys with the crash. So the bird's down. Now the mission has basically changed. The 80 of us on the crash, or at the Target building, are now going to move on foot. The bird goes down about 5 blocks away, so that's northeast. So it's 3 blocks east, and then a left turn towards the north. We're going to move on foot, and at the same time, all those vehicles that had driven away with the prisoners, they're going to try and come back, because they were still in the city. They're going to try and reroute and come and help this crash. Just as we get ready to roll, my buddy Doug, who was in charge of the squad leader gets hit, and you see him bleeding, and he's bleeding pretty bad. And the medic's trying to work on him, and Sergeant Watson looks at him and checks him and says, all right, Bourne's been hit. We're sending him out. You're in charge. I go, well, what happened to him? Is he okay? And the last I saw Doug until the next morning was they were running down the street together with the medic trying to patch him up. And I'm thinking, well, maybe, I guess the vehicles are going to come get him. Sergeant Watson, are we going to exfil him out with the vehicles? He said, hey, now's not the time for that. You're in charge. And he was right. And I tell this story because it's a perfect example of what I struggle with daily, my friends, which is how many times do you find yourself looking around going, someone asks you to do something or something needs to be done, and you say, it's not my job. That's not my responsibility. Somebody ought to do something about that. Somebody ought to do something about that. But there it is. It's square on your shoulders, and you've got to carry that load. Fortunately, I knew what to do because we had planned and we had trained for it. I took Doug's radio. I clipped it on my hip. I said, DeJesus, you're the team leader now, brother. And DeJesus is over there like, Roger, Sergeant, do you know in Puerto Rico, everyone is a team leader? Like, yeah, dude. He's a chaplain now. It's just crazy to me. Eric Saransky, you need to look after David Floyd. David Floyd, you watch after him, and let's go. Follow me. We're moving. And we're the last guys down the street. Somewhere in that movement, David Floyd starts seeing some guy that's been shooting at us. And the guy he obviously had no training because he was missing horribly, which is preferred, basically. But David sees the guy, and he's getting closer, and Floyd's yelling, he's up in the tree! Sergeant Thomas, that guy's up in the tree! And I'm still thinking like a team leader. I'm still standing over Floyd, telling him what he needs to do. I'm like, what guy in the tree, Floyd? What do I need? And Sergeant Watson, who has that gift of seeing the bigger picture, who knows exactly what needs to be done, exactly when it needs to be done, and what you need to do, he turns around and says, Floyd, do you see the guy in the tree? He goes, Roger, Sergeant, he's shooting right there. Is he shooting at you, Floyd? Yeah. Then why don't you shoot back? Bing! Woo! Floyd says, oh my gosh, I'm a machine gunner in the 75th Ranger Regiment, and I got a job to do. And I trust me now, I take full responsibility for Floyd's hesitancy because I had spent so many months standing over that young man, micromanaging him into submission, telling him, that's wrong, do it like this, watch me, because I was impatient. I just wanted to get the task over with. Watch this. That's how you fire a gun. Do it. I never took the time to take Floyd and put him out in front and put him in charge. And I never had the patience to let him fail so that he could learn from his mistakes, so that when the time came, he would know what to do. Well, time came and he got it. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm being counted on. And now they teach you, the guys who are gunners will love this one, they teach you when you fire the machine gun that it's fired off. I'm not pointing this at you, Bill, sorry. When you fire off the machine gun, it's fired in what's called, the technique is a 5 to a 7 round burst, correct? So you don't Rambo the thing because that just, the chances of it jamming up and overheating are greatly increased. So you fire the gun in a rhythm, and it sounds like this. Gack, 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 gack. Pause. Gack, 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 gack. Well, I could hear Floyd back there. At first, he was very rhythmic. It was gack, 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 gack. Gack, gack, gack. And then he must have seen something. He was like, gack, 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 gack. I'm like, Floyd, stop! And I go running back, and the whole gun's smoking, and like, he's from South Carolina, like the little redneck that he was, he takes his goggles and puts them on his helmet like he's been out there hunting deer or something. And he goes, did I get him? Now, I know that I'll go into a church on Sunday morning, and I will tell this exact story, and someone in the back of the church will gasp because they'll be like, I can't believe he's talking about shooting people in church. I'm not. I never even saw the guy in the tree, but what Floyd did do is get the whole tree. It fell. And that, my friends, is a technique. I could not have taught that. That's one way of doing it. Good job, Floyd. We got to go. When we made the left-hand turn towards the crash, that's when everything got bogged down. And man, I could spend another hour telling you stories of just amazing moments of valor. At first, It was so crazy and over the top that we used to call that moment, but before they ever made the movie, we called that moment Hollywood because I hadn't seen anything like it other than the movies. It was crazy. There were so many gun rounds going down the street and aircraft doing gun runs and bad guys shooting from everywhere, and you could see people running back and forth across the alleyways. It felt like training. Shoot, move, communicate. Do what you've got to do. It was training up until somebody got hit. And when somebody goes down, I still have not found a great way to explain that reality. And any one of the veterans in here that has seen it will not have a great way to explain it. If you do, please come tell me because I want people to understand. It is a whole nother reality because it is so matter of fact. Somebody gets hit and they go down. Now, training-wise, I know what to do. Training-wise, we can teach you how to keep a person, a body alive. Do you know that right now over there in Afghanistan, our survival rate is 99%? 99%. This is why, as a community, as employers, you're going to see people coming back into the military with prosthetics, and you're going to see people come back into the military with what we used to call handicapped. Well, these people aren't handicapped. They've done the hard work of rehabbing, and they're going to get right back into society. It's up to us as a community to embrace that, to bring them in and be patient and say, you know what? You have demonstrated what it takes to be a leader. You know what it means to be counted on. I'm going to give you a shot, and I don't really care about that tungsten carbide steel leg you have. It doesn't matter. Those folks are coming home because we can keep them alive. That's why you've seen so many more of them nowadays. Here's what I cannot teach you how to do. I can't teach you how to not care. Man, we're not machines. We're people. You got feelings inside. You care that was your buddy. You care that that's somebody who held the line. You care that it was all centered upon that person, and now he's gone down, and you've got to fill that gap. And what do? You care that could happen to you. All these emotions start happening. And listen now, when we get emotional, here's what happens. The research is very clear on this. When we get emotional, our ability to see the bigger picture starts tunnel visioning, like this. And it's all about that moment, that zone that we're trying to save yourself. The body's trying to pump chemicals into you, tell you to do the right, save yourself, fight back, or get away. And I tell you, it would be easy for anybody to just disappear into that zone and forget about what's going on around them. But nobody did. Not once did I ever see any of our soldiers, any of our Rangers, duck behind a wall, get out of the fight, mess with their gear, hey, my weapon's down, jammed or something, make up an excuse. Nobody did. And I know the movies love to always show that guy who wigs out and gets all scared and freaks out and doesn't want to fight. I'm going to tell you right now, not in our Army, not in our United States military. I've never seen it, not once. Amen, amen. The reason is because we understand. They know there's someone on their left and there's someone on their right counting on them. They know that they're the most important piece of the puzzle. They see themselves as crucial to the fight, and if they don't get out there and hold their line, their place, people are going to pay for it. Lives are always on the line. You may think that, well, Kenny, lives aren't a life and death situation that I live in right now. No, maybe not. But lives are always affected by what you choose to do and what you choose not to do. Those who want to make a difference can. The fight continued. I'm going to tell you about Earl. That's the one. I'm going to pull one story out of this. The first guy that I saw go down was Earl Fillmore. Earl Fillmore was a Delta Force operator. Earl was as good as it gets. Earl was right across the street from me, about five yards away. He hit the ground. His team leader gets to him, Sergeant Hooten. The two of us are talking back and forth, trying to figure out a way to get Earl medevaced out of there. They weren't sending in another helicopter because unbeknownst to us, not only had this bird gone down, the bird that replaced them went down over here. He got shot out of the sky. Both rescue helicopters that were assigned to go check on those crash sites went to those crash sites, and both of those birds got shot out of the sky. There were 4 of them down within 15 minutes of this battle starting, and they weren't sending in another helicopter at that point to come get Earl. So I run back to Hooten. I was like, Sergeant Hooten, can we move Earl? Can we move him out on foot? And Hooten looks at me and said very, very matter-of-factly, he just said, nah, man, Earl's dead. And y'all, I didn't have to check his airways. I didn't have to check his pulse. I could tell you from here to there that guy wasn't who he used to be. Now, 20 seconds ago, he was Earl. He was still, I could tell he was alive. He hadn't moved positions, but that wasn't Earl anymore. Now, I don't come in here to preach. Y'all, preaching is not my gift, but I can tell you this, that if you have not been a believer in the idea that there is a soul inside of the human body and that the soul goes someplace else when the body dies, I will tell you, but you've probably never been there when somebody dies. I'd never been there when somebody, I thought it was going to be like the movies. It wasn't. It didn't even look, it looked like a weird wax figure that once was Earl. He didn't roll over and look like he was sleeping peacefully. It was just, man, it was very matter of fact. And then I got it. Bam, I got it. I got what I'd seen all you World War II vets on the Discovery Channel interviews saying. I understood what you hear the people from Vietnam talk about, and I understand it right then and there. That it was not about the flag. We shake hands with all the people in the airport. We say, hey, thanks for your service, and thanks for fighting for our freedom. And yes, freedom and family and the American flag and patriotism, those are American ways, and those are enough to get us to raise our hand and walk out there and do the job. But let me tell you why we go out there and fight. It's not even for our family at home. It's for this guy and that guy. I'll be damned if that's going to happen to my 3 men, and that's what it becomes about. And this guy here is taking care of this guy over here and that guy. And this guy here is taking care of this guy and that guy. And so forth down the line. Now, you can try and save yourself. You can. How far you think you're going to get? Now, some of us will go faster than others, and some of us are stronger than others, but you will never get to the top of Mount Rainier on your own. You've got to have people around you. Wouldn't you rather have somebody on your left and your right, knowing that they're counting on you and and you're counting on them and moving forward? As big as this room is, we filled an airplane hangar with patriotic people from Florida. Thank you for coming in here and supporting our military and showing your support. But take a good look around. This is it. Like, there's a whole nother city of people out there in Sarasota. Now, I don't know if they're patriotic or not, but they're not here. You are. If you don't take care of each other, who's gonna? There's no reserves out there waiting to come in here and fill your seats. You're it right now. You got to take care of the people around you and let them take care of the folks around them, and you watch how powerful that will be. We fought. We had to keep fighting in the night, but I know what my mission had become. I'm not going to let that happen. I turned around. There's Floyd, DeJesus, and Saransky, and all 3 of them they're pulling security down the street, and they keep cheating to look back. They keep looking back over towards Earl's body. Because, I mean, what do you think? I think Floyd is thinking right now? He's thinking the same thing we're all thinking. Oh, man, if that could happen to Earl Fillmore, it's going to happen to me. When is it going to happen to me? And I looked at Floyd. I said, hey, man, I need you right now to take care of Saransky. And Saransky, you need to look after him. Don't let anything happen to each other. I can't be here. I got to move up and down the line. If you have a question of what to do, DeJesus knows what he's doing. He's the team leader. And DeJesus is over there challenge right now is the dude from Puerto Rico is speaking Spanglish. It's better than they just said us in the middle of the and a man with a weapon, shoot! Wow. Whatever he just said, do that. But if you don't know what he said, then here's what you do. Do what's right. And I know you know what is right. I don't lose any sleep at night because I had to leave my guys and move down the street. I know they knew what to do was right. We fought all through the evening, basically we had so many wounded guys, we couldn't get them out. The pilot's body from the first crash was crushed in the wreckage. We didn't have the tools to cut through that Kevlar. We needed help. All the Rangers that had been on the vehicles getting shot up all day long, they never made it back to the airfield with the prisoners. They kept trying to come back for us. They would go back to the airfield, unload the wounded guys and unload the dead guys, and throw people back in and come back out and try and help us. All night long they fought. There were guys from the 10th Mountain Division up in New York. They weren't even assigned to us, but those guys came in and helped us out. They didn't know us. But they came. And in the morning when they got there, Pakistanis and Malaysians came. We threw all of our wounded people on those vehicles, and the vehicles drove off with the wounded guys, and that left about 30 of us, and it was morning time, and the bad guys were still there. They were still shooting. And we had to run out of the city, run from the city. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. This is the worst plan ever, because I could have done this last night. But we couldn't leave our dudes behind. That was the bottom line. And here's Here's what happens. People will ask me, they're like, well, Kenny, for a while, they're like, hey, were you scared? I'm like, I don't ever remember being scared because I replaced it with another emotion. It's a very powerful emotion. I was very angry. At that point, I'm like, I can't believe we've been put in this situation. I can't believe they have done this to us. I can't believe we don't have a ride. This is not the way it's supposed to be. This is not the way it's supposed to go down. We're the Rangers. That's Delta Force. Why is this happening to us? And as we're running out of the city, this is what I'm thinking. And let me tell you something, y'all. The devil is in the details. It's not the big things. It's the little things that will always get you. And we are very clear about the basics. Little things started breaking down. For instance, when you cross the street, what's the first thing they teach us to do when we're this big? It's good to know that the education system in Florida is working. Thank you. Yeah, there you go. They put that on a standardized test. That'll work. Look both ways. When people are shooting at you, this is a very solid principle. Look both ways. And the way that we would do that is we have one guy on this side of the street watching out, one guy on this side of the street watching out, and then you tag team and you leapfrog across the street. No matter how small the gap is, you do this every single time. And what started happening is people were starting to let that lump in their stomach and that why is this happening affect their decision-making process because they were getting emotional. And it turns into something like this. I can't believe this is happening. Why are they not sending us a ride? This is stupid. Come on, you're covered. Let's go. That's called finger drilling it, my friends. You're going through the motions of what is expected of you. When you walk out there on a day-to-day basis, you can play the videotape back and you can show, well, I did stop at the corners and I looked both ways. But did you really? Were you there 100% and then some? Did you show up for the people around you, or were you worried about yourself? And at some point, we all started bunching up on one of the streets. And it's because some people were doing the right thing and some people were not doing the right thing. And you know that it was David Floyd, y'all. Sergeant Thomas, get down. Bam, bam, bam. And that young man had his head on a swivel. And he saw two guys step out of an alleyway with rocket launchers aimed right at us, the entire platoon. That young man saved our lives. David Floyd saved our lives. And I will tell him that every time I say, hey, man, thanks for that. I'm so glad that we held him to a high standard. We were as good as our weakest link. And the problem was, I would have told you that David Floyd was our weakest link. It was not the weakest link. I was the weakest link because I kept leaving him behind. I kept assuming that because I was better than him, that we didn't need him. I could do it all myself. David Floyd made a choice. He made a choice to do the right thing. There was a Delta Force operator. There was his platoon sergeant who was down the street. There was his squad leader who was right there, who should have been doing the right thing, who knew exactly what the right thing to do was. But I let the emotion of the situation overtake me and say, I can wing it. David Floyd was an extraordinary individual for that. And I would have told you prior to that, he was average. He just kind of met the standard. But that's not what makes David extraordinary. It's not that minute and a half where he did one extraordinary thing. Listen, and this is, I could tell you tons of stories about people who did extraordinary acts of valor. Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart were two Delta Force operators, and they were the only people that could get to that second crash. Remember I told you another crash went down? The only guys that could get to it were these two men. They knew full and well what was coming, and I've seen the video feedback, y'all. I'm not kidding you. It was 200 bad guys with weapons, not including the crowd. 200 people were running to that crash. Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart knew what they were up against, but they knew that if they didn't do it, who was gonna? They were the last line of defense, and those men that were in that crash that were still alive needed some help. They probably didn't even know Mike Durant's name, but they went, and they fought until they ran out of ammo. And when they ran out of ammo, they were overrun. And those two men died trying to save one man's life. They were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, and it's the only time in the history of the citation where it's been awarded to two men for the exact same actions. You won't see a difference in the citations. But those two men are extraordinary. It's easy for us to say, well, those are extraordinary men. They're Medals of Honor winners. But it's got nothing to do with that, with the one little medal we stuck on them for something they did. Now, does it? Because that moment took a career of training and planning and working hard and getting up every morning and saying, man, this job sucks today. I don't want to have to go do this. But they got up and did it because they knew people were counting on them. That's what makes them extraordinary. That is what makes you extraordinary. You had many other places that you could have been today. You made a choice. And you came in here, and you're going to go back out into the world. You have everything that you... Here's the good news, y'all. Listen. You have everything you need to go out there and lead. You have every gift, skill set, weapon system, tools. They're already there. You got to learn how to use them. You got to get better at them. And you got to recognize that you got them. And then you go out there and you make a difference. Please listen to me. Do not buy into the lie. Do not buy into the lie that the world sells you on a daily basis. The world is out there trying to tell you this. Extraordinary is somebody else. It's not you. You're the ordinary individual who maybe can do something extraordinary, but extraordinary, look at these people and what they've done in this moment in history. That's got nothing to do with the moment in history. Please don't listen to that. You are not ordinary. You're an exceptional, extraordinary, one-of-a-kind creation put on this planet to do something great. Do something great. You got it. Y'all, I'm not making this up. Like, this stuff has been since the beginning of time. And I'm sure the chaplain would get up there and he could tell. The book of Romans has all these gifts that humans were given. Like, hey, if you've been given the gift to sing, you should sing. And if you've been given a gift to teach, then you should teach. And it says in there, if you look, it says, if you have the gift to lead, then lead well. Well, I'm going to tell you, everybody's got that gift. We all have the gift to lead because all you got to do is set an example for others to follow. That's leading. How you set the example is the tough part now, isn't it? That's tough. Getting out there every day and committing yourself to do the right thing where the devil's in the details and the little things every day, every time. It's tough. I get it. The Ranger Regiment has a creed. And the creed is said over and over and over again because when you believe something, you live it. When you say it enough, you will believe it. When you believe it, you'll live it. First stanza of the Ranger Creed. Recognizing I volunteered as a ranger, fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession. We signed up, we took the job, put me in coach, knowing it was going to be tough. We knew it would be hard. Some days are harder than others. But we knew it was going to be tough, which is why you're never going to see anybody wearing the boots right now over there complaining and whining about where they are. Because they know it's going to be tough sometimes. Now, I don't know if we have the Junior League or the Sarasota Community Creed or the Patriot Day Creed or the Freedom Creed. We should come up with one. We could do it. And you guys could call each other at 5:30 in the morning whenever it's dark. You got to do it. That's when we had to do it. You stand there in formation, call each other and yell the creed, recognizing I volunteered to inspire patriotism, fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession. I know it's going to be tough. When you get up there and preach the good news about America, you will meet some resistance. I guarantee it. You will. The world's going to go up against you. It's going to be tough. And you're going to have tough days out there doing whatever it is that you do. Family is hard enough as it is sometimes. It's tough. But if you need a creed, I'll give you a creed. It's on the walls of the Ranger Regiment. It's on the walls of the Delta Force compound. It's on the walls of every single Special Operations Area unit or unit I've ever worked with. And it's the Bible. It's the Old Testament, the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, verse 8. Isaiah 6:8 reads like this. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, who will go for us? Whom shall I send? And I answered, here, my Lord, send me. I'll do it. Put me in, coach. There's your army of one. There's your guy. There's your volunteer. There's your girl who stepped forward. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was heading out on a night mission. Full combat gear. And I look up and see it on the thing, and I'm like, here, my Lord, send me, Isaiah. I bet that dude was a soldier. I'm going to check him out. And because here's the thing. For all of us in this room, the majority of this room that raised our hand because we were serving in the military, we don't get to serve in the military anymore. We don't. But you've been given gifts. I've been given a gift. I've been given a story to tell. Trust me, y'all, it took me 10 years to figure out that this story wasn't a curse. I didn't want to talk about it. Just like most of the guys and girls coming home, I don't want to talk about it. But then I finally realized if I don't tell a story, who's going to? So I've been given a gift. And with that gift, I can sing a song. I have an audience. I go out, I go to USO tours. I play to audiences. this is the gift I've been given, and with it, I take that responsibility seriously. And at some point, I'm going to tell everybody that's standing there listening to me that you too have a gift, and that who are you leading? Who are you following? Are you using those gifts? It's very simple to do. I can talk to all 500 of us in this room. But when this thing is over, it's done. Y'all go back out into the real world. Who are you going to talk to? I can't reach those people. You've got people on your left and your right. This is, this is a solid foundation. The chaplain would get up here and he would tell you, he could probably do a whole 6-part series on how Jesus was a small unit leader. He didn't go out and affect the whole world. He affected the world by getting his 12 people around him and hammering them with these principles of setting the example for others to follow and leading. You don't have to go out and change the world. You do it with the people around you. That's how you set the example. I am starting to preach now. Hang on. I'm going to get my guitar, and I'm going to play a song for you. And the song that I'm going to play, this is the magic closet. Y'all don't come in. Here's my guitar. The song that I'm going to play, when we go over on these USO tours, usually you only have a couple songs you can do because you have other artists with you. I find it interesting that whenever I pick up a guitar, without fail, people walk out of the room. See you later. I know what they're thinking, too. Yeah. They're like, oh, man, what if he sucks? You know what I'm saying? I'm more at home behind a guitar than I am with a microphone, so you guys sit back and listen to this song. It's the same song that I'll play for the troops when I go over there. It's the same song. When you play on the Grand Ole Opry and they invite you, and we get asked to come usually around the military holidays, and I'll play, they let you play your one hit, and then you get to play another song. And then I should retract that. For those of us who only have one hit, you play that one, and then you play your other song. And this is the song that I want to play, because it says what I just tried to say for 45 minutes. I can sum it up in a 3.5-minute song. It's about 3 people, I can name them by name, who stepped up. They did something they didn't want to have to do, but they did it because they knew they were being counted on. They knew they were being counted on. And that's how you make the difference, y'all. The song's called Hold the Line. If you've got a second and before you got to go back to work or life and get back to whatever it is you do, please come over and see me and say hello. Get a book, read the book, pass it on to somebody. What we make on the book usually goes to the Warrior Foundation, but tonight I'm sure there's a ton of charities. We'll make sure that the money goes towards those, especially my buddy who's got all the guide dogs, and Michael is one of my good friends. He's a blind Marine, and he's a funny dude, man, and he'll tell you up and down how much of a difference in his life those dogs have made. So we'll take care of them today. Come over and see us, but mostly just tell me who you are. Give me a chance to say thank you for your service, because that's the best part of this gig. The macaroni was great, but... Blood on their knuckles, mud on their face. They fall back to the huddle for one last play. Quarterback says, you gotta buy me some time. I can get us there, boys, but you gotta hold the line. You hold the line, hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder, and we're side by side. Give it your best, and I'll give it mine. We're gonna win this together if we hold the line. Got his elbows on the table and his head in his hands. 20 years on a job he never thought would ever end. But his wife says we'll make it, we're gonna be just fine. 'Cause we got each other, we're gonna hold the line. Yeah, hold the line, hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder and side by side. We gotta have faith, the sun's gonna shine. We'll get through this together if we hold the line. Well, he gets choked up when the bugle plays. He remembers the battle like it was just yesterday. He knows he owes his life to the ones left behind, and for their sacrifice, he's gonna hold the line. Hold the line, hold the line. We're shoulder to shoulder and we're side by side. In a world going crazy, in these troubled times, we gotta all stand together. We gotta hold the line. In a world going crazy, in these troubled times, we gotta all stand together. Hold the line. Hold the line. Hey, thank you all so much. Thank you to the Junior League for bringing me in. God bless you guys. Thanks to you in the uniform. Counting on you. Rangers lead the way.
Thank you so very, I don't know if we lose this mic. Sergeant Kenny Thompson, thank you so very much. Brought back a lot of memories. For me, I'm sure many of you as well. While the chorus from Gosho Elementary School is coming on stage, I'd like to invite everyone, as Kenny just did, to go back and look at his book. They will be on sale, and he will be available to sign copies. Also, there are boxes at the rear on the table in case you're interested in sending a soldier a package for the holidays. There's instructions and suggestions of what you might want to send. So can we bring the youngsters on? These are not troublemakers, they're treble makers. They're going to be singing a neat little song called 50 Nifty United States, and then a song I'm sure you'll recognize, God Bless America.
That is great.
There goes the future of the country, ladies and gentlemen. Chorus from Gosho Elementary School.
That was terrific, really was. 15, what a neat way to learn the states, wouldn't you say?
It's a song. Well, thank you for coming this afternoon. We hope you've had an enjoyable time. As you leave, please stop by the tables and take a look at the model, the Patriot Plaza, and pick up some valuable Veterans Administration. And if anybody knows anybody in Arlington, you might say, hey, better watch out. Sarasota National Cemetery is being put on the map this year. Thank you again to the Patterson Foundation.